Hey, Janice.
Hi, Anthony.
Today, let's talk about, or let's answer three recent solo Ager estate planning questions. Yeah.
Yep.
So everyone, we get a lot of questions from solo Agers and just listeners in general, and just trying to knock out some of these questions.
Yeah. Thanks. We appreciate the questions. Means they're listening and have more questions.
Sure. So the first question we got is a bank as executor better? And the context is, our listener had just recently listened to our previous episode, 211, where we discussed whether or not executors are contractually bound to actually serve. And so the listener asks, okay, if an individual executor is not contractually bound to serve, is not guaranteed to serve, does it make more sense to just use a bank as executor? And the short answer is no. It's not necessarily better.
Right.
First off, logically, the banks are no more contractually bound than an individual is. So that there's no difference there. There are sort of individuals and banks are on the same level on that issue.
Neither one is bound. Right.
Yeah. And, our listener rightly asked, okay, what do you mean? Why wouldn't they take it, right? Why wouldn't they accept your estate if they initially did? And we've seen it. This happens over time. You have to think when you're doing this kind of work. You have to think in 10 or 15 or even 20-year scales, not 10 weeks or 10 months.
Right. Not tomorrow. Yeah. Long term.
And so what sometimes happens is a bank might shut down their trust and estates division, and they might simply not have that department anymore. That happens, right? They might find it unprofitable or whatever.
I think we just saw a big bank that got rid of their personal loan department. It happens.
Yep. Another thing is they might have, since the time that they agreed to be your executor and the time that you passed away, they may have updated their estate minimums so that your estate no longer qualifies. Let's say when you signed up with them, your estate was worth $2 million. I don't know, just coming up with a number. And that met their minimum requirements. But since then, they've bumped up their minimum requirement to $5 million. And sadly, your estate has not grown to that size.
Right.
So you just don't qualify anymore, and they won't accept. That happens.
Yep.
And then even if you meet qualifications, and even if they still have an estate or trust and estates department, they might reject your estate in committee. And what that means is, with most of these big banks, once a potential executorship or trusteeship comes in, it goes to, some sort of internal review or internal committee. And they often reject for reasons that, kind of why you wanted them to be the executor. For example,
Right.
They think it's too risky because they see that your brother and your nephew and your niece are fighting, and there's going to be a lot of litigation. They don't want to be involved in that, right?
Right.
Or they see that the estate is mostly like a house and some art and collectibles, illiquid assets. So that's kind of a pain for them, whereas banks usually want to be in this business so that they can have kind of control of your portfolio, your investable portfolio. And it's a lot of work to liquidate those kind of assets. So they might be like, it's not worth it,
Right.
So short answer is no, a bank is not necessarily better. And, they're not contractually bound either. And we just gave some examples of why they might demur. Next question we have from our solo Ager listeners. Should a professional executor review my will before I sign it?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. And the context here is I'm often asked to serve as professional executor for my clients, but I'm often not the attorney who drafts the will, whether it's because they're in another state or they already have an attorney they're comfortable with, or we're just in one of our phases where we're not able to do drafting just because we're busy or whatever. Mm-hmm. So the short answer to the question of should my professional executor review my will is not required. There's no legal requirement that I review your will any more than it's required for your spouse or your best friend or your nephew to review your will before you sign and name them executor. But
Right.
However, if you've gone the path of naming a professional executor, such as myself, who happens to be an attorney, or if you go with a bank even, which will have attorneys or teams involved,
Right.
you might as well get that second set of eyes on your will to make sure that it's what you want. Yeah.
Yes.
It's almost like a free second opinion. Who doesn't like free stuff, right?
Right.
But again, I got to reiterate, if you're working with a good attorney that you feel confident, it's really not necessary. And sometimes you don't want your attorney to feel like he's being armchair quarterbacked or second guessed. I mean, he probably shouldn't feel that way, but I don't know. If you're asking like 10 different people to take a look, and he might get irked.
It might get a little confusing too if you have a lot of people looking at the will and a lot of different opinions, and right? Yeah, especially all these people that Google it and think they know what they're talking about.
No, excellent point. Yeah, no, totally on point for sure. You don't want too many cooks in that kitchen, right?
Right, exactly.
Okay, last question of our 3 recent solo Ager estate planning questions. Does naming beneficiaries on my accounts help my professional executor? And the short answer is no. It actually makes things harder.
It's not, no.
Yeah. Okay, so why? Why doesn't that make things better? I mean, in theory, naming beneficiaries to your account, that's where you, on your bank account or brokerage account, say, in case of my death, this will automatically go to my nephew or my niece. Sort of like the way you name a beneficiary on your life insurance. That's the scenario we're talking about. And it goes automatically. You don't have to go through, it's not part of the probate process. And you're probably thinking, oh, that's awesome. I'm minimizing probate because probate's always a nightmare. And so there's some truth to that. But here's the holistic view of the situation. If you name too many or all of your accounts, if you name beneficiaries on too many or all of your accounts, you put your executor in a liquidity crunch. Okay? And what does that mean? Because those accounts go directly to the heir or the beneficiaries named in them, your executor, me sometimes, I don't have operating cash to do what I need to do to move your estate forward.
Right.
Okay? So I'll give you an example. We have a situation in one of our estates where there's 2 houses and a business and a bunch of and a car and a bunch of accounts, right? But the accounts nobody knew, none of the heirs realized, but as an unpleasant surprise, all of the accounts and the car have beneficiaries on them. I didn't know you could have a beneficiary in a car. But,
I don't think I realized that. Okay.
I think it was a joint owner, so it automatically goes to
joint owner. Yep, that. Yes. Yep. Co-signer. Yep.
So that means, what is the estate now? The probate estate that I'm the executor of. I'm the executor of 2 houses, a business, and I have no cash. And my job is to sell these 2 houses and this business, but I don't have any money to clean out the house. I don't have any money to upgrade the security to make sure the store is not looted. Basically, while we're in this transition phase, we have a tenant who won't leave one of the properties. I don't have money to pay for the eviction process, so that puts us in a crunch. Right?
Yes. Yep.
I mean, there's solutions. They're not ideal, but I'll probably end up having to sell one of the businesses or the houses at a severe discount, because who wants to buy a house full of junk that I haven't been able to clear out? Or who wants to buy a business where I haven't been able to secure it or get the financials done or audit, Basically, no cash means I'll have to sell it as basically an as-is situation, which buyers, you're going to have fewer buyers, right?
You are. And you are going to have less of a price because as-is means, well, no guarantees of what's going on inside.
Exactly. So when we're named, so how do I avoid this situation? When I'm named as an executor, I ask to review the beneficiary situation and just make sure that there's at least one or a handful of accounts with sufficient funds that I can actually do my job when the time comes.
Right.
Otherwise, it's just not great.
No. A whole nother world of problems. Yes.
So I think that's it. We've covered these 3 recent and very relevant. These are good questions. Keep them coming.
Yeah, I like these questions. Please ask.
So we've covered the 3 solo Ager questions, and I think that's it for today.
Okay. Hey, you talked about free earlier. Listen, there's probably a link in the comments to get a copy of Anthony's book, The Solo Ager Estate Plan. So check that out.
Perfect. That's it for today. Thank you, Janice, and thank you everyone for listening. Take care.
Bye-bye.